All right, Coach, can you talk about some new responsibilities you had moving from defensive coordinator to the head coach?
Sure. Some of the new responsibilities are obviously managing the entire staff, the entire program, from managing budgets, setting the year calendar, multi-year calendar moving forward, and basically just being the CEO of the company. So all the little things that go along with it, from the academic support to dealing every aspect of the university.
Can you talk about Coach Bagnoli a little bit? He's here for so many years, and then he retired, and now he's at Columbia. Just talk about what he did for this program and how you plan to continue on that legacy.
Absolutely. Well, I all the respect in the world for Coach Bagnoli coming back in '92 and taking our program, which I had been part of for previous 3 years, had been just kind of stagnant, and had a great resurgence in the program, great success immediately, and obviously when you have that type of success for 23 years, it was a pretty awesome experience, and trying to live up to that legacy, I think, is something that you always, as a coach, young or old, you try to strive for excellence, and I just know learned a lot of great things from Coach in his time here at Penn. It's been a great experience working for him for so many years, and just try to keep that great tradition moving on.
Can you talk about facing him when Columbia and you guys play?
That's one of those questions you get. I'm really not. I'm more worried about the first game and getting ready for Lehigh. Obviously, anytime you're going to be across the sidelines for someone that you have so much respect for, there will be a great excitement level, but probably will be no more exciting than it was for the first day of spring ball taking on over, and the first day of preseason camp here coming up in August. The first for all those things will be probably pretty exciting times.
Can you talk about Tyler Drake a little bit? He had a really good season last year. He was definitely the standout on defense with 6 sacks, and really came into his own. Can you just talk about him a little bit?
Sure. I think Tyler's been a young man who's grown each year in the program. He's gotten better and better and better, and emerging himself as a true team leader. Stayed in Philly this summer to work and train with his fellow teammates, and I see his growth emerging in so many different capacities. I think one is he's an outstanding player, and he's really worked on honing in on his skills and getting better there. But what I love about him right now is his leadership, and his energy level is really, really high.
He's not the biggest defensive end. Could you see him potentially moving to outside linebacker in some different schemes?
Well, I believe those words get sort of mixed in the jumble, what a defensive end is and an outside linebacker. For all intents and purposes, he really is an outside linebacker. Different than in past years where Brennan Copn played defensive end, but was more of a defensive lineman than an outside linebacker. So sometimes those words get sort of confused in the schemes in which you play. You'll see Tyler probably rushing the passer 80% of the time and dropping into coverage like a linebacker maybe 20% of the time. So they'll have a great year. We're real excited for him.
Like you talked about Brandon Copn in the NFL, he's moved to a little bit of a linebacker position and less of a pass rusher. Can you talk about that a little bit and how you think he'll do there?
Sure. Well, anybody who knows Brandon knows that young man is driven to success ever since he got here, and he's gotten to where he's in this stage of his career and his life due to really, really hard work, and he really worked hard in the offseason to sort of change his body to get to that level. It's a whole new world when you play defensive line with your hand down on the ground for so many years of your life, and you have to play a new position. But if anyone can do it, Brandon will. He's got the will, the mindset, and the drive, and stayed up in Detroit this summer to work and really hone on his skills, and he's worked hard to get to where he is.
You're replacing Evan Jackson and Dan Davis on defense. Can you just talk about replacing those guys and their leadership a little bit?
There's so many guys you are replacing, and I think do you really ever replace a person for person? The answer to that is no, because the year before that we had to replace Sebastian Jaskowski, who was a great player. And so when you look for young guys who can really fit into what Coach Benson's trying to do on the defensive side, from a safety standpoint, DB standpoint, guys that have great football knowledge, great instincts, and have great desire to play. And I think the young kids we have in the program, cautiously optimistic about them.
Last year the team only had 6 interceptions. Should we expect to see any more man coverage or any more zone coverage to try to increase that rate?
Sure. One would say sometimes you play too much man, you don't make as many interceptions, and sometimes you play zone, you get more. So it really depends on what you are. I really believe the success and failures on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, are really, they mirror each other. So, if you are winning by a lot, forces people to throw more balls down the field, take more chances, the more opportunities. If you're playing great defense, you keep offenses in check, and different situations cause that way. So it's great ebb and flow in the game of football, and I think you will see. One thing Coach Benson has really stressed since he's got here is the turnovers, both interceptions and fumbles, because those things, when we went back with Brandon Copn, we had a very, very tough start to the season. I think we threw 7 interceptions at Lafayette that first game. But when it came back to it, the second half of the year, the Ivy League games, we were on the plus side of the ledger. And that's the reason why we won a championship. So turnovers play a huge key in that, and we'll definitely try to increase that.
Have you put an emphasis on turnovers in the spring practices and the early practices?
You always do, but sometimes you'll lose sight of it. This spring, it was on both sides. One is creating turnovers, and the other side is not having turnovers. That's to quarterbacks not forcing the ball in there, throwing the ball away, running, and that's something that has to be encouraged throughout practice, and really made a point of emphasis with it. And I think both staffs on both sides have done a real nice job to this point doing that.
Now you got a new offensive coordinator, John Regan. Can you just talk about him a little bit and what we should expect to see on offense? You guys going to be a pass-heavy team, or a team that really tries to pound it in there and gain the yards?
Well, Coach Regan has a great history. He, Coach Benson, and myself all started at the University of Albany some time ago in different eras. So we have a great heritage in terms of where we started, right? Where we started in the coaching profession. John has had a great career, been in many different stops, has got some great concepts and ideas from his time at Kansas, at Rice, and then back to Kansas again. I think what you'll see out of John on offense is he's an O-line coach, so he'll want to run the football. But more importantly than anything else is ball control. I think you've seen in offenses this day and age, or the short little bubble pass, you might as well be a toss sweep, because that's really what it is. It gets counted as a pass. It's a ball thrown behind the line of scrimmage. But to that point, ball control is important, and obviously controlling the ball, tempo of the game, and obviously turnovers become a huge part of that as well. I think we want to be physical, we want to control the clock, tempo of the team are all things we're emphasizing.
We're in Chip Kelly City, and over the past few years we've seen some signs come up, and it's a quicker no-huddle offense. Should we expect to see that again this year?
Yeah, I believe, and been a defensive coach for so many years, and I know Chip. We got a chance to meet through our career, so we know each other. He's obviously put a lot of gray hair on the heads of a lot of defensive coordinators with that style of offense. I think it is definitely a weapon. I think all offenses should have the capability of doing that, because it really puts defenses back on their heels. It takes out things that we have to prepare for in defense differently. But yet you have to have a system and a concept to do an offense, which we're well equipped to do.
Can you talk about Alec Torgerson a little bit? That was his first year starting last year, and he definitely had some struggles. But what have you seen from him this offseason, and his progression and just the hard look?
Well, I think you put the nail on the head. The first year starting, no matter who you are, there's growing pains, and I think patience is the one thing I think we have worked on him, and what you can see him in the off season working on is his decision making. At the time when he's out there on the field, making the right decision, right? Throw the ball into traffic, as I said earlier, or throw the ball away. I think he's done a great job in the weight room in terms of physically developing himself even better. He's a big guy to begin with, becoming a more well-rounded body athlete. I think he spent some good time there. So his growth is hopefully right on track, and I think Coach Regan and the offense staff have a lot of confidence in him. But as we do with a lot of players, I think you got to have depth. You better build depth, and I think you take, whether it's Alec, and then you turn around to Andrew Lisa and the guys behind them. We got to make sure we're developing not just our starters, but all the guys that are around there to keep guys in the wings ready to step in.
Now for Torgerson this year, it'll be a new receiving core without Connor Scott, Mitch King, Spencer Kolsar. Talk about some of the young receivers you guys have, and what you should expect from them.
Sure. I think as a group, there is some youth, obviously, Spencer and Mitch, those guys graduating, but we do bring Justin Watson back. We do bring Ryan O'Malley back. We do bring Cam Countryman back, who got on the field last year. So we do have some experience coming on back. Obviously, you do leave a lot of receptions not in the lineup anymore, so there will be that. And like anything else, they got to get the hang of playing together, throwing a catch, and again having a lot of those guys on campus this summer definitely is helping out, getting that sort of continuity and getting that feel for each other has been something that we've been focusing on, all spring and obviously through the summer with the preseason.
Now, Mitch had some opportunity with the Green Bay Packers of the NFL. Can you just talk about his game a little bit and how you think it'll transition to the NFL?
Sure. If given the opportunity, and that's the key thing, it's opportunity to, again, there's limited spots to make rosters in there, and I think you have to have the mindset and the drive. I think Mitch has worked real hard in the offseason to give himself that opportunity. But a lot of that comes into right place, right at the right time, and timing is going to be huge with that. Always a special teams component in that part of the process. So I wish him well in his pursuit of trying to make the NFL.
Can you talk about the running back competition you guys have right now? There's not a clear-cut, starting running back. You guys obviously lost some seniors, and a lot of guys haven't seen that many touches. Just talk about some of those guys a little bit.
Sure. Well, I thought, and to your point, we came into last year, and that'd probably be the one position which we, there's reasons why you have success and failures on a year. And when you look at the injuries that we took to the running back core, which was Lyle Marsh and Kyle Wilcox both getting hurt early in the season, and then Trey Solomon, who looked like a very promising young player up in the Fordham game, did well until he hurt his knee. So you turn around and you had 3 or 4 top running backs out. But to that, as the season progressed, Brian Schoenauer came in and did a really nice job very, very late in the year. Ryan Ripp, who played a little bit as his freshman year, came in towards the end of the season, and you saw some of that. So we hope with a Trey coming back off of his knee injury, and he seems to be in great shape right now, that that group will get bolstered by that. But like anything else, you need a lot of weapons in the backfield to help go through a very long season, and so we're going to need all those guys to be factors. Mike Ellis-Peru Sr. coming back. We're going to look for Mike to contribute in a lot of different ways. So right now, to your point, maybe not a clear cut, but definitely some guys who've worked real hard.
You're returning all your starters on the offensive line, minus center Trent Rivera. Talk about that a little bit, how much experience matters, especially in this Ivy League with a lot of good pass rushers, a lot of good defenses, and now those guys coming back with a year starting and what you should expect from them this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at whatever position it would be, whether it's offensive line, secondary, there's definitely a feel that you have for it. If you have experience any place you want in the offensive line, no doubt about that. So we definitely have some good experience coming on back. I think John was pleasantly real that's why, but very happy about the way the offensive line progressed during spring ball. The kids worked real hard, both physically and mentally, picking up what we're doing schematically. And I think again, it's part of that success and failures goes into your scheme, and do your players fit the scheme? And I think there's a nice blend of both of that. But definitely, we would say is definitely a strength in the offense, being the offensive line, and obviously the quarterback position, because that comes back with obviously some real good experience there.
Can you talk about your tight end position a little bit, if you're looking for more of a blocker, a downfield receiver, and what we should expect from that position this year?
Yeah, absolutely. If Gronkowski wants to come on and join our team, we'd love to have him. Sure, you want that tight end that could do all those different things. And I believe Mitch and Ryan O'Malley during their careers here have done that. They've flexed out wide, which you see a lot of tight ends doing these days, but yet can be attached to the line of scrimmage and being key aspects in blocking. Typically, to try to find the guy that can do both is really difficult. So you typically find a guy who's more of an attached Y guy. He's better in the blocking and can catch some passes, but maybe that's limited. And then you find the smaller, more agile, H-back as we'd call it, a kid who's more flexed out. I think we have a good combination of both of those in the program right now. Ryan Kelly adds that versatility of a good young man with a good size and whatnot, who can play attached and detached, and both those guys are real good, and hoping for some help by some of the young guys.
Can Can you talk about the kickers and punters right now? You have 3 kickers / punters on the roster right now. That's a lot of kickers. So just talk about those guys a little bit and how they've been.
Yeah. Well, again, I think success and failure, it goes back down to every aspect of the game, and special teams is one of those facets that you got. My first job here is coordinating with special teams. I take a lot of pride in the special teams, and that'll be an aspect that we will definitely look to have lots of success moving on. It does start with the kickers, and it's just not the kickers. It starts with the long snappers, and you better have guys who can get the ball back to, whether it's punt or extra points and field goals, and the guys who are holding become a crucial part of all of those guys' success. Ball is not snapped in the right direction. It's really, really tough for a kicker to be very, very successful in whatever he's trying to do. So Jimmy, Aaron Morgan, Hunter, Kelly, those guys have done a nice job that had the most experience getting on the field and kicking for us. We do have other guys that we recruited that are talented, but that's an area which I think we have to, not just on their shoulders, the actual specialists. I think they're all very, very, very talented. But I do believe in the whole gamut of the guys. The whole unit is a big part of their ultimate success.
Can you talk about some of the freshmen you guys are bringing in, the 2019 class? Is there any contributors we should expect, and just how they've looked in their beginning to their college career?
Yeah, I would say this, not to put any more pressure on it than any freshmen going into college. They're all good. They're all very talented young men. They wouldn't be coming here if they didn't fit a certain role that we feel they should fit. How quick they can come in and contribute will be based upon sometimes relative to their position, the need for a freshman to jump into things. Louis Vecchio last year as a freshman played. There was a huge need to injury in the defensive line. Taylor Hendrickson, a freshman, comes in and plays last year due to that need. Did you want them to do it? Not really, but they sort of got thrown in before their time. So talented group. I'll reserve the not earmark any of those guys right now, but I think they're, some of those guys could definitely help us during the course of during the year, based upon how they progress, and obviously, let's God willing, we don't have many injuries. They have to step in.
The team has previously had a JV team. Should we expect a lot of those freshmen to be on that team if it's still around this year?
Absolutely, no question about that. We play 3 JV games this year. They'll always be a big part of it. And then some sophomores and occasional juniors who are not getting playing time. In the Ivy League, you're not allowed the redshirt. So the development of the young players in your program are huge. So playing in those contests gives them game experience where they can turn around, whether it's kicking and punting to catching, snapping, whatever it may be. There's a lot of times that guys will start on the JV squad, get some experience early, and in the second half of the year have now developed, they're seasoned, and now they come up and play on varsity. So that is definitely a tool by which we really have used very well in the past, and we'll continue to do it.
Can you talk about how much emphasis you put on those games and how much different the practice is week? A lot of times the freshman guys or the JV guys will be on a scout team, and then
Sure.
you may have them going into a game that day, or some of those things. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Sure. And this is probably, they don't get a chance to practice together a lot, right? To me, it's because it's really tough. You're trying to focus on their season. What we try to do in preseason is work a lot with the young players as a group. So you got your young men who are, you'd say you're too deep on, during practice, getting a lot of the reps, and then you try to focus during preseason of the younger guys getting those team reps. To your point, during the week, they're servicing both the offense and defense, and don't get a lot of time to prepare for their games. So, a lot of what they do is just right to the fire, go in there and play, and really based upon a lot of things, really just show us what they have, what their capabilities are. And the things you look for there are some natural things, guys who are natural born leaders. You could see that stuff definitely come to the forefront. Who really plays hard, who's really, really focused and dialed in. It's, again, a great, great tool for us.
Can you talk about some threats we should expect this year? Obviously, Harvard and Yale had a great year last year, and they had a great final game. Just talk about those two teams, and then Princeton's perennially good, and Brown and Columbia. Everyone seems to be good in this league. So
Yeah, I think there's, as it's going on each year in and year out, a really good balance within the league. I think there are obviously some phenomenal players, whether it's at Dartmouth and Brown. Some individual efforts last year were great across the league. I suspect it to be very, very similar to that. There's going to be a lot of, I don't use the word parity, but a lot of good teams and good matchups that go through. I think everyone's ability to stay healthy, okay, is the really, really critical thing, because again, as soon as you do lose a couple key players, whatever it may be, offense or defense, can really set your future going on. So there'll be some early matchups that will be really important for all teams to take on, whether it's, our first league game with Dartmouth, that'll be a key matchup. But there's a lot of time before we even get to that point. I think those other programs like ourselves are probably so focused on just getting the guys ready for camp.
Can you talk about the Villanova game a little bit? It did get moved to a Thursday, and just how that'll affect your practice week and just the rivalry overall with them.
Sure. Well, again, it's crosstown rivals, and year in and year out, we've had some really, really close games, and last year they had a dominant team, and some of the national championship teams that they've had, they're a very, very talented team. No doubt, moving that up in this shortened week will be interesting. We played them several years back on a Thursday night and on a shortened week, and I believe the final score is 17-3. So would you rely on not as much on the scheme and the game plan, but more so on really the execution of your guys able to do it. We'll come off that Lehigh week and game. Typically you have a day off before that game. Our day off will be the Saturday after, so it does throw a little curveballs and monkey wrenches into sort of your normal planning. But with that, we've reached out to other teams and other conferences that do play the Thursday nights, of sort of look at what they've done, their blueprint and plan, and try to see how it adapts to ourselves.
Can you talk about John Robertson a little bit? You're obviously probably going to have to keep a quarterback spy out there because he's so mobile.
Sure. No, he has a very, very gifted. I thought he graduated. I'm only teasing. No, he doesn't. I said that to a couple of the Villanova coaches when I met him this summer. He is so talented, both with his feet and his arm and throwing the ball. And like many Villanova quarterbacks we've had to defend through the years, he's just in a long list of very, very talented young men that can hurt you in so many ways, and a really, really competitive young man too, which I think is the part of it, which I think is the best part of watching. He's so competitive. They don't change their game when they're playing Syracuse, Fordham or Penn. They're playing their same game, and he plays with a broken hand last year. Very, very competitive kid, and we'll have our hands through. We'll have to have a couple of spies.
Obviously your defensive end will obviously have a little bit of a different game, with such a mobile quarterback. They'll really have to follow their lanes correctly. Just talk about that and how you prepare you guys for such a mobile quarterback.
Sure. I think every game you go into it, you have some core principles that you have to have in every game, right? You got to stop big plays from happening, cause turnovers, and obviously being very, very disciplined. The difference when you play a team like a Villanova or William & Mary or any of those high-end scholarship level schools, or they can hurt you instantly, right? With one play, one person out of a lane, that is not just a 10-yard gain, that could be a 50-yard gain. So to limit those big plays, not giving them those opportunities, will be huge in our way to defend them. And then offensively, controlling the ball, controlling the clock, not giving them so many times, right? The best defense could be a great offense with ball control. We've done that at times. So we're going to need to be able to do that and play, once again, great team football. In my years at Penn, the years that we've had the best success in the program is that we're on a given weekend, the great ebb and flow, very, very good consistency between offense and defense and special teams, and we played together as a great unit. And I think that goes into winning not just the Villanova game, but any game that you do play.
All right, thank you very much, Coach.